Okay.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today for another candidate forum for the village president of River Forest.
My name is Peggy Kell, and I'm the voter service chair for the League of Women Voters of Oak Park and River Forest. We are partnering with the River Forest Library to put this forum on, and very grateful for Megan O'Keefe's technical assistance and expertise on putting this together. The League is a nonpartisan organization that does not endorse candidates. Our mission is to register and educate voters on local, state, and national issues so they can make informed decisions. Early voting will start on March 10th at the local courthouses, at March 22nd at the Oak Park Village Hall, and election day is April 6th. Following this forum, there will be the River Forest Trustee Forum at 3:30, and you can still register for that forum through the River Forest Library. I also want to thank Leslie Lauderdale, who is going to be our timer box today, that at least the candidates will see. I'm not sure everybody else will see it, but the candidates will definitely see the timer box. The ground rules for the forum. This is being recorded, and it will be posted on the library's website pretty quickly. It will be also posted, then cross-posted on the League of Women Voters website also. Candidates will be giving 1-minute opening statements and closing statements. After the opening statement, same questions will be asked of both candidates with 1 minute to answer. Order of speaking, because we only have 2 candidates, will be alternating. The questions and statements will be timed. I, as moderator, will read the questions that were submitted in advance, and anybody that wants to submit another question via chat, we'll look at that to see if we can fit it in. I'll make sure the questions are appropriate and avoid duplication. Candidates, do you have any questions before we begin?
No, do not. Thanks.
All right. So Cathy, you were going to start off with opening statements first.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, the League. Thank you to the Public Library for hosting this wonderful forum. This is a great way to get to understand the candidates and what they stand for. I am Cathy Adduci, and I'm your village president. I am a longtime River Forest resident. I have one daughter, Jenna, who is currently in her 2nd year of law school at John Marshall, giving her a plug. I'm a retired executive from Unisys Corporation. It's a Fortune 500 company where I led a major US division. I am now on several for-profit and nonprofit boards. I'm running for re-election because I want to build on the progress that we have collectively made over the last 8 years. We have a bright future. However, in this time of uncertainty, I think the combination of my strong financial background and government experience will be necessary to help our community move forward. I believe that my steady leadership will be invaluable as we start to recover from the effects of COVID-19 and meet those other challenges that we have. To move a community through a crisis, a leader must have a vision. And mine is to maintain and continue the progress and growth of River Forest as an outstanding place to live and work. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty?
Okay. Good afternoon. Again, I'm Patty Hennick, and I want to thank the League and the library for providing this opportunity. I grew up in Chicago in the Austin neighborhood between 1968 and 1990. My family and I in 2000 moved to our current home where we live on the Lemonade Block. I have been a steadfast advocate for River Forest, which has been proven in my 4-year term as village trustee, a Lemonade co-founder, and a PTO president at D90 for Lincoln and Roosevelt. I am running for village president because I value the importance of good governance, transparency, and accessible public deliberations. I have consistently championed these values, and in their absence, we end up with village plans like the languishing Lake and Lathrop lot, a divisive committee process such as our Deer Committee, and failure to accelerate diversity initiatives. My transparent and collaborative leadership will advance actions that are reflective of all River Forest residents, and I have proven that I am ready to be the next village president. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the first question, Patty, you're going to start with the first question. The village board will be responsible for selection of a new village manager with the announced departure of the current manager. What traits will you prioritize in your candidate search and selection process?
It's a great question, and it's an important one, because you're right, as Cathy mentioned, we do have some uncertainty, but the positive is that Eric Palm did a great job putting together a staff. So staff that we already have in place have been there for some time. They're familiar with our process and our village, and I feel comfortable that they can continue to lead that effort. But traits that I will look for in light of our discussions around trying to move diversity issues, I will definitely want to look for somebody who has experience working in that area of DEI. I would definitely like to work with somebody who has the same strong a feeling that I have in terms of being transparent and inclusive and open. And so here's our opportunity to mentor a new village administrator who champions those same qualities.
Thank you. Cathy?
Yep, thank you. Yes, Eric Palm was a gem. We really enjoyed him as our village administrator. Our form of government is our village president and the village trustees set policy and ask our village administration and their staff to actually fulfill that policy of that direction. So that person, the administrator, needs to be a strong person in many characteristics. The person needs to be able to understand how to build a staff, as Eric did, building his own staff. The person needs to understand, zoning and planning and legal aspects. The person needs to understand the little p, how to deal with the community that surrounds us, the community that is, our own, and then has to learn how to actually go and seek funds and grants from state and local officials. So you have to have really a multifaceted capability to run a village. It's not easy, but I am confident we'll find the right person, and we've got a few in mind.
Thank you. Cathy, you're going to start with this next one. What role should volunteer committees play in helping make final village decisions?
I think our commissions and committees are, essential. They are our advisory group. They help us think through important aspects that we would never know just sitting at the board table. They help us gather resident input to understand a situation. So they're essential to have. But I want to remind everybody, we're kind of a small community. We're 1/5 of Oak Park. We all know each other. Our kids play baseball together. So we want to encourage everybody to join our community in any way they can to help us get through whatever it is that we're trying to get through, whether it's zoning, planning, sustainability. We have so many great opportunities to move this community forward, and we have so many opportunities to engage, civic engagement with our residents and others. I'm just very, very encouraged by all the community members that want to get involved. So thank you.
Thank you. Patty?
Yes, this is a great question, and it actually represents a cornerstone of my campaign, which is representation. And specifically, I have spoken about the importance of opening our commission process. The reason being is that I do, as Cathy points out, value our commissions. I believe they offer some great input to help inform our decision making. My concern has been, though, it's not as representative of the community as I believe it could be. I, as a trustee, cannot know everyone's lived experience, especially as an abled white person, right? I'm going to experience our community a lot differently than somebody with a disability or a Black resident or person of color. Having broader representation on our commissions is important so that when we are planning and making decisions for the broader community, those decisions are being reflective of the varied needs in our community. And I would open the process and let residents know when these opportunities to engage are available so that we can evaluate more residents who want to get involved.
Thank you. Patty, you'll start with the next question first. What economic development opportunities do you envision in River Forest in the next 1 to 4 years?
That is a great question. And in light, again, of our uncertainty in finances, economic development is going to be a really important one for us to focus on. We have already put pieces in place to make some movement on North Avenue and Madison, but I think we have to be a lot more proactive, particularly in Madison, since we own property. We need to start moving forward on making some decisions there. We unfortunately are going to be to a point where we're going to have to make a decision about Lake and Lathrop and what's going on there, because at the moment that's not really helping us. And so it's going to be important, again, between making important decisions about Lake and Lathrop. When we're looking at Madison, we actually have to take proactive steps. There are systems in place, experts who can help us bring that economic development to River Forest, right? We can't expect that people are just going to be walking by and making a decision. We have to have outreach with the experts to bring in the economic development that our community needs. And I will endorse community endorsed development.
Thank you. Cathy?
Yeah, thanks for this question. It's a great question. It's been the hallmark of my presidency in terms of why economic development is so important. As you know, we finished or are about to finish the Sheridan, which is an assisted living facility up on Harlem and Chicago. It's been a great success for our community. We have TIF districts that we established, again, under my leadership. We knew that we needed to concentrate on additional revenue and how to really build up our commercial base. So we went out and decided that North Avenue in Madison was going to be the place that we were going to build our commercial base and revitalize it, actually. And I think our residents around that area really want that area to be revitalized. I don't envision, tearing things down and rebuilding. What I envision is we're going to have, newer and more, spiffy type of buildings. We have Lake and Park that we have to look at. That's a great opportunity for our community, and we will definitely finish up Lake and Lathrop. So we have enormously great opportunities. I'm really, really bullish on economic development in River Forest.
Thank you. Cathy, you'll start this first question. What is the upper limit on a % tax levy increase that you would consider acceptable for the next few years?
Great question. I think it's 0. We should always strive for 0. Now, there's challenges to that particular percentage because of the pension funds that grow 3% compounded annually. But we did it this year. We took 0 CPI and we took 0 new construction, and we can do that. And why we can do that is because you really have to be careful on your fiscal policy and look at everything across the board, find cost savings, find ways that we can produce revenue, find grants and funds out of the federal government and the state government, which there are plenty. Today, we just heard from the Senate that they just went ahead and approved a $1.9 trillion out of President Biden's administration. So there's going to be some money coming from the federal government and some money coming from the state government under the Build Illinois. And these are important pieces of revenue that we need so that we don't have to tax the property taxpayer. So I say 0.
Thank you. Patty?
I would actually echo points that Cathy made, including trying to maintain that 0 addition. What I would actually like to propose as president is to incorporate a long-term 5-year comprehensive strategic plan. Currently, we budget more on an annual basis. We incorporate a 5-year capital improvement plan, which helps inform our budget. But I personally would like to see a more long-term comprehensive plan so that when we're making decisions, like in the situation of COVID, where we're having to make financial decisions that we didn't necessarily plan for. And so you're having to respond in ways of supporting businesses or residents, reducing fees. If we have a bigger, more holistic, big picture, we can make better decisions, I believe. Because if we're making decisions that are seemingly more in their individual silos, being reactive and making financial decisions, if we don't take a step back and look at things from a big picture, I think we run into problems. And I personally would like to see us have a more comprehensive view of our long-term financial situation and where we are.
Thank you. Patty, you'll have the next one question first. What is your view of the historic preservation ordinance? Should it be stronger to protect our beautiful building stock?
That's a great question. And this is an area that I am really happy that we established this commission. I think it's important to have the commission, whenever we're making these types of decisions for our community, a lot of it comes down to educating the community on why these things are important, right? For people to understand the value in preserving housing and our diverse history in our homes, right? That's some of the charm in Oak Park and River Forest, is the long history we have with some of our homes and our structures. I recognize that we need to evolve at times, and I'm not necessarily saying that you always have to maintain something just because of its age, but if we have the education from our commission so that we can get the buy-in from the residents, because if we decide to make it a stronger ordinance, it will require, right, an understanding and buy-in from the residents in order to support that. And so education is a big part of doing that. And that's what I think the great work that our commission has done, creating the walking map, identifying the homes that we already have that are identified as significant homes. That's all important.
Thank you. Cathy?
Peggy, could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I answer it.
Absolutely. What is your view of the historic preservation ordinance? Should it be stronger to protect our beautiful building stock?
Yep. Okay. I think the HPC, the ordinance itself was really, we spent a lot of time and energy with the ordinance, and we had a lot of public meetings regarding what it is and what it isn't. And I think at one point in time, several years back, I want to say 4 or 5 years back, the historic preservation would say they didn't have teeth. And I would probably have agreed with them. There was not much in the ordinance that gave them any real power or authority to stop demolitions. And so with that kind of public input, we decided as a board then to kind of look at the ordinance again and look to see if we can give it more teeth. And what we decided as a board is to give a 6-month stay, if you will. So if there was an historic home, and we've had a few, Mars and Mansion and others, that came to the historic preservation and wanted to tear it down and build 2 homes. And the unfortunate situation there is even after 6 months of a stay, there has to be a buyer for those homes, and the homes have to be kept up. And so I think that the board and myself gave I think the historic preservation ordinance is a strong one for River Forest for now.
Thank you. Cathy, you're going to start the next question first.
Mm-hmm.
Transportation and building sectors are 2 sectors that contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. What would you propose as ways to reduce these emissions in River Forest?
Yeah, great question. I think it was even on my website and in my toolkit. I think we are working really hard at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. If you go on our website, I think the Sustainability Commission under Lisa Gillis has done a phenomenal job. We have implemented Soul Smart Bronze, as well as a new aggregation and renewable energy aggregation, which helps us reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. But we can do more, and I'm recommending that we go to our zoning department, and then of course the zoning board, to look at the LEED certification for any buildings that are built in River Forest. I know Oak Park does it. I think we could do it. I think it's something that should be considered, and I don't think it's onerous on the developer, and I think it's accepted clearly worldwide. So I would say LEED is one of them, and anywhere we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, we will do that.
Thank you. Patty?
Yes, I would agree. This is definitely an area that we need to take seriously and plan for. So I have actually proposed that I would support a climate action plan. I think our sustainability committee has been doing a phenomenal job, as Cathy pointed out, in laying some of this foundational work. The village itself has signed on to various compacts to meet greenhouse emission standards. But I think we're at a point where we have to actually establish some more concrete actions to achieving these compacts, meeting these goals, right? And there are resources out there like Project Zero Energy to help us guide that. But we also need to do planning in terms of our budget. If we're looking at, for instance, when we were talking with the capital improvement plan and looking at changing our vehicles, we have to start budgeting to allow for, if we're going to move towards doing electric vehicles. Some of the technology is not there right now, but once it is there, we have to be ready with our budgeting plans so that we can allow for that sort of, those sort of changes that are going to be important.
Thank you. Patty, you're starting this next question first. Should business relocation assistance be offered to those impacted by the Lake and Lathrop redevelopment process? If yes, what would this look like? If no, why not?
So that question is somewhat, we're already past that role, right? In terms of those businesses have been displaced already. And unfortunately, in my opinion, we had not an equitable way of addressing those businesses. I think we could have and should have done a much better job navigating the conversations around what those businesses were going to do. We want to support a developer who comes in, right? But I think we have to continue to advocate for our existing businesses, just as we would want to continue to advocate for adjacent property owners. And so I do think we want to support businesses when we can, when we financially can, and it makes sense. But I think we have to hold developers accountable if it falls into their purview that they should support and help a business get through their lease, right? If they still have a lease. But I also think we have to have better policies around guidelines and parameters so that all businesses are getting a fair and equitable opportunity for this assistance. And going into the Lake and Lathrop project and the businesses that were supported, that didn't happen. We had one business who did get the skincare business, did get that business incentive, but that was actually put on as a condition of approval for Lake and Lathrop, was for the developer to help with that particular incentive. And then that didn't happen, which is why I voted no on it. We didn't hold the developer accountable to that. When we were presented with the business incentive for in and out, I did support that because I do think it is the right use of TIF funds.
Thank you. Cathy?
Yes, thanks. Typically, relocation expenses would happen in a plan development agreement when you're working with a developer. In the case of Lake and Lathrop, we worked with the developer, and part of the issue was that the timing of when the building was being bought and the timing of the demolition and so forth. And I know personally, I met with each one of those business owners and worked with them, tried to work with them to find a place that can be relocated in River Forest. We want to keep our businesses. All of our businesses are very, very important to us. And one of the things that we suggested to all the businesses, and I know one of the businesses had talked to all of the businesses about this, is we wanted to move them over to a place, one that was available. And typically they were on Madison Street was where most of our locations were available. And actually underused, that particular area, they had opportunity for more tenants. And so when we talked to both skincare and in and out, they were, yes, pleased to go over there. And we gave them an incentive to go over there using TIF dollars, which was completely appropriate and came to the board and it was approved. So, relocation is important for our businesses, and I support relocation.
You're muted, Peggy.
Sorry, our phone was ringing.
That's what you said happens, right?
Yeah. Cathy, you're going to start this next question.
Okay.
The signing of the River Forest and Maywood Covenant is an important and hopeful step towards greater diversity and compassion in our village. What concrete action steps would you take in the next 1 to 2 years to realize the goals of regional development and investment, expanding supplies, diversity, and collaborating on equipment and facilities?
That's a great question. A lot there for a minute, but I'll tell you this. I'm really psyched about the covenant with Maywood. We obviously have them involved with our working groups at Dominican and with our internal DEI group. We'll bring Maywood in. We're looking at, in addition to all of that, we hope to also have some cultural inclusion where we can share some of the things culturally that we do, like we have a Memorial Day parade. And so we want to partner more with them. I say in 1 to 2 years in terms of collaboration on equipment. One of the things I would love to see, and I have had conversations with the mayor and some of the trustees over there, is that we both have public works buildings. And our public works is sitting on Forest Avenue and their public works building is sitting on Madison Street. And I think that could be an opportunity for us to share a building and look for ways to save money for both of us. And I think it would be an appropriate conversation to have as soon as we can have it. And I know that Maywood is very interested in it as well. So that would be one possibility.
Thank you. Patty?
So this covenant that was introduced by Miguel Jones, trustee in Maywood, is what solidified my decision to continue to stay on the board and then to take a leadership role in the board as president, because I do think this is a very important partnership. We definitely have a history in River Forest, whether some want to admit it or not, where we weren't always so welcoming and inviting to our neighbors to the west. And so I think this covenant is an important piece to building relationships, establishing some trust with our neighbors to the west. And so I personally see where we've had the forest preserves has been a convenient barrier between our two communities. I personally would like to see, especially in the near term, use that as a way to bring our communities together. Using the space over there to perhaps have like a day in our village in Oak Park, right? Having a day in our villages where we can learn what each community has to offer. I would love long-term in terms of an infrastructure project, look to have a sidewalk along Chicago Avenue that connects both our communities, allows both communities to have easier, safer access to Trailside, but then what a great visual symbol of our joining together and coming together as neighbors. So I think there are endless opportunities for us to partner with Maywood. I personally do not want to be locked into those 5 in the covenant. I want the community to feel open and encouraged to think out of the box and get creative in what we can do with our neighbor to the west.
Thank you. Patty, you're going to start this next question. Please describe how you see the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee unfolding, and most importantly, what do you see as the end product of this committee? What does the village need from the committee?
It's another great question, and it's an important one. I personally see a lot of value with this diversity committee. I am also personally disappointed that it's taken us more than 6 months just to get to the application to have residents on this committee. Trustee Bachner and Brennan actually identified a dozen residents who are willing to start that work back in September. And it's taken us, I believe, too long to get here. I think this conversation around diversity, we need to accelerate. And so what I would like this committee to do, I would like it to be reflective of, again, the idea that I can't know everybody's lived experiences. So I would hope that this committee is made up of predominantly residents who we are trying to address the concerns that they've had over the years regarding racial issues. I want to empower the committee to be able to review any and all policies that we have at the village level so that we can identify where we can improve. Again, what looks good on paper, what we think is working is not always playing out in practice, right? We all have different experiences. I know our Black and Brown residents, our students at Dominican are not experiencing River Forest the way I am as a white person. We need to hear those experiences. We need to be ready to sit in that uncomfortableness and address the issues going on and improve. Sorry, you're muted again.
I always think that's going to work and it never works. Kathy, sorry.
Sure, Peggy, could you repeat the question? I want to
Absolutely.
answer it.
Please describe how you see the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee unfolding. And most importantly, what do you see as the end product of that committee? What does the village need from this committee?
Well, first, I'm really, really pleased that we were able to come together as a board of trustees and make a decision on this really important initiative. I think it happened because of the likes of, Erica Bachner, Trustee Bachner, who had a vision and a focus and a razor-like focus on how she thought this should unfold. So I congratulate her for her efforts on that. And even though there were 12 people that came forward, I think we all agreed because we were all talking about how inclusive we want to open up the application process of our commissions and committees. And we didn't want to just choose, a handful. We wanted to send it out to the residents and let them, choose if they wanted to be on the commission or the committee. So I'm really pleased that we have this out there. We did it in record time. When you think about something like this, I think Oak Park is still struggling with many of these issues, and many of the other communities are. So I'm very proud of the trustees. I'm very proud of the residents that made this commitment to this working group. And I hope that everyone out there, please apply. We want your input. We want to hear from you. We want you to be part of this wonderful and exciting and very important initiative that we've got going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, you're going to start the next question first.
Mhm.
How would you make development decisions that require complete streets, which means pedestrian, bike, and car, allocation of our roads and infrastructure resources?
Yeah, complete streets is a great idea. I endorse the complete streets. In fact, one of the things that we keep talking about as we start redoing some of our major thoroughways like Thatcher, Chicago, those areas, we did try to do some complete streets on it. It gets hard because our streets are not very wide. So to keep bicycling lanes and walking lanes and so forth. But I am committed to complete streets. I like the idea. I think once our bike lanes start coming, we just approved our bike plan and the implementation of the bike plan. I think once we start seeing the bike plan implementation roll out, it will be a start of a complete street. We also have walkways that we did as part of our Safe Routes to School. Where we, of course, put up 70 stop signs across River Forest so that we didn't have any, intersections that were not protected. And so part of that, we put together cross signs with lights on it so that kids could cross easily from one end to the other. So I'm for complete streets. We've got to do some additional work on that.
Thank you. Patty?
I would agree. This is definitely an important area that we should be exploring and doing as much as we can. Again, I would go back to, this is why it's important to look at things big picture, why it's important to bring as many people into the conversations and planning process so that we are, as we're doing things in the planning stages, being mindful of these types of decisions. I know when we were having the conversations when Chicago Avenue was being redone and we were making decisions about the rain gardens and bump outs, which were important to address some of the concerns in terms of making safer passage across Chicago Avenue, using the bump outs as a calming mechanism for slowing traffic down. But the problem is then it ends up being a detriment when you're talking about making plans for bike routes on Chicago Avenue, right? There were avid bicyclists who attended those meetings who had concerns about the bump outs not allowing for a safe bike lane. And so we can't, again, do things in these silos. We have to look big picture.
Thank you. Kathy?
Mhm.
Okay.
I already answered the question.
Right. I'm looking at my next question here. The deer issue in River Forest resulted in the establishment of a deer committee, which resulted in a culling option solution, though it was a close vote. How would you approach information gathering before a final vote on this issue?
Well, let me thank you for that question, and I want to address it head on. First of all, I want to tell all the residents of River Forest that we are going to do all what we can and listen to all the residents and read all the reports before any decision will be made on anything. And that's important because I know there's some anxiety that we weren't going to read some reports and that's just not true. I want to hear and see all of them. I want to actually hear about the alternatives because that was really one of the basis of why we actually put together the task force, is that we wanted to hear the ideas that how can we control the deer without having to call them, but just create alternative ways to landscape, plantings, and so forth. So I also want to be clear that even though the advisory group may have suggested calling, it is not actually our authority to call. The only authority we might have had is to maybe pay for the calling, of which, again, I can't consciously agree to pay for the calling. So the real issue here is let's look at the reports. Let's really sit down as a group of residents and neighbors of residents, and we can get through this. I mean, it's an issue that it's not insurmountable, but I want to make sure everyone understands. I hear you, and we will hear all voices on this, and we will never make a decision without the collective we, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty?
Yeah, so I guess I have to say I'm surprised to hear Cathy's comment about consciously not wanting to call because unfortunately in June of 2019, so we're going to be coming up on 2 years where we had that first meeting with the IDNR talking about deer issues. And yes, there were residents at that point that we were hearing were having more concerns with the deer. The expert, the IDNR expert at the time, made the recommendation that we have a survey, we have a committee. My research showed that we should have a committee to form a deer management plan. And unfortunately, that June, we didn't go right into that process. Instead, President Adduci actually did an end run around that process and worked with the forest preserves that brought back an IGA that was going to have us go right to calling. And we didn't take the steps of establishing any sort of benchmarks in terms of what we were experiencing in the community, what would have shown us success if we did go the route of calling, and what are the solutions outside of calling that the residents could help address some of these concerns. And I know we're running out of time here. I've got a lot more to say on that if someone would like to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question, Patty, you're going to start first. It seems the affordable housing plan focused solely or focuses more on low and moderate income households. Shouldn't it also have covered the dwindling supply of housing affordability to middle-class river foresters?
Absolutely. And so the affordable housing plan is really important for river forest. Besides being a state requirement that has been a requirement since 2003 to have an affordable housing plan, river forest, although we're at 9% of what the state requires to get to 10%, we're still only at the lower 4% of municipalities in terms of affordable housing. What we need to do with affordable housing to have a good plan is, again, back to this education to residents, so that residents understand what an affordable housing plan is and why it's important. And why it's important is that it allows us to preserve a diverse housing stock, so that new and existing residents have a variety of options as they are having different life needs, right? Different stages of their life. Having a good affordable housing plan allows us to have a diversity of residents, which enriches our social fabric. When residents, particularly in this middle and even lower area, are not cost burden, home cost burden, they have more discretionary funds that allows for them to spend money in the community, which benefits us. The added benefit of having a diverse housing stock, though, it allows us to maintain this intergenerational community where we are not displacing people, our seniors who have lived here for decades. They're not being forced out, right? We want to have that balance of options.
Thank you. Cathy?
Could you repeat the question again? I want to answer it.
It's, let's see. It seems that the affordable housing plan focused solely on housing for low and moderate income households. Shouldn't it also have covered the dwindling supply of housing affordable to middle class river foresters?
Thanks. Yes, that's exactly what it does do. The affordable housing plan that we passed is exactly targeted to the middle class, and it's also targeted to the I'll call the modest income a group, and the seniors that are on fixed income. In fact, that's exactly what the report basically said. It said that it would be for people on modest incomes, in the middle class, teachers, firefighters, police officers, those that make a modest income. And so I that's exactly what we passed. It's very rich in 6 action items in the affordable housing plan. It allows us to actually change our zoning code. We have to stop talking about wanting affordable housing and start doing it, because that's what our residents and I think we want. We have to start doing things, and this is what we did. I'm really pleased about our direction on the affordable housing and what it will do. So any new development that comes into River Forest, we will now start with some zoning changes and zoning standards. We're going to start talking about developers putting affordable housing in exactly for the middle class. So yes, that's what it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Cathy, you're going to start with this next question first. What would you do to make River Forest a more welcoming community for LGBTQ people, and in particular, LGBTQ youth in our community? What concrete actions would you come up to urge the village to take this on?
That's a great question, Peggy. First of all, I support this entirely. I know I've worked with Erica Bachner on a proclamation. And I am very excited to find more things that we can do in that area. I'll be honest with you. I know many families in our, have our LGBTQ have families in that, and they want to do something. I want to do something, and I'm open to suggestions in this area. It's an area, and it's an area that's dear to my heart, because I know I have a lot of friends, and I enjoy working and being friends with them. And I think we need to do more for that group.
Thank you. Patty?
This is a great question, and I was very appreciative of Trustee Bachner bringing forward the suggestions that she did last June. She had approached President Adduci about having the village declare June Pride Month. And then she offered some great history on why June is even declared Pride Month. The other suggestion that she made was to have Village Hall display the Pride flag for the month of June. And unfortunately was told that we did not have a flag policy to be able to do that last June. And when the proclamation was read, that President Adduci shared, she had stated that she was going to publicly work. She was making a public record that she and our administrator Palm was going to come up with a ordinance. And as far as I know, that hasn't been done because we haven't had anything come back to the village board. So I do think there are things that we can and should be doing. And I would absolutely, as the goddaughter of the former president of PFLAG, I would absolutely support them and embrace those.
Thank you. Patty, you're going to start this next question. What have you done toward police body cams? These are important devices for the safety of our police and our community.
What have I done for police?
Not personally. What has the board done in purchasing and making sure all police have body cams?
I know conversations have started around body cams. I know from my research is that these are the types of things that you don't just go the route of implementing things like that if you don't have the conversations around what are the policies around it, right? How will there be accountability in terms of what happens when the cameras aren't used? How will that footage be used? When would it be made available, right? There are all sorts of things that need to be discussed than just going to a particular decision like that. And so I would expect that that would be a robust conversation that we are having in terms of our policing and how we want to use technology. But again, being clear that we need to have policies around that so that they really are being effective, if that's what we deem is necessary for our community.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yes, thanks. Great question. Well, the good news is the state of Illinois has passed a criminal justice system reform bill, which mandates the body cams in all municipalities, depending on their size. Now, our size is small, so the mandate is 2025. And of course, we support that wholeheartedly. Also, the federal government just passed another bill, House Bill 1280, which is called the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. And there also discussed body cam requirements and mandates. So of course, River Forest is going to not only comply, but we believe in that. For us, we need to identify the money. Again, it's a situation. Now, I think part of this reform bill that came out of the state from Springfield will include some money for the police department to purchase the body cams. Also, I want to make sure people understand that also our police department is very much in favor of this because they feel it is a good way to also have a good civic engagement and relationship with our residents and those that come through River Forest. So very much in favor of body cams, and we'll be doing it before 2025.
Thank you. Kathy, you're going to start this next question. Do you believe the village has a role in supporting equity and education? And could this be part of the charge of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee?
Yes, I think we have a role and a responsibility in every bit of what equity, diversity, and inclusion means. I know I'm very fascinated by Sheila from Dominican, who has helped me along the way in learning and understanding more about and be more intentional about diversity and equity and inclusion in River Forest. And what we did together with the partnership in Dominican, and of course the working group, internal working group, I'm very proud of the fact that we, we're establishing a very good foothold. So I think any part, whether it's education equity, whether it's parks and recreation equity, we should all have a fair and respectful treatment of all people and fair access to everything so that person can thrive and live. And so that's what equity is, and we should have it across the board with all our taxing bodies. So yes, and any of our private institutions as well.
Thank you. Patty?
Could I ask you to repeat that question, please?
Do you believe the village has a role in supporting equity and education? Could this be part of the charge for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee?
Okay, so the way I hear that question is specifically how I would interpret the question is how specifically in D90 or even D200 in that mind, where I see the village role is an overarching work around diversity and equity and modeling the importance of work around diversity, equity, inclusion when it comes to specific decisions that our school boards might be making regarding how they are going to have curriculum or changes specifically within the schools. I do think that's the purview of our school districts, right? We have our elected school boards who are making those decisions. We have the experts in the schools, our superintendents, our teachers, who are making those decisions on behalf of our students. So of course, we as a village, it's important for us to know that our schools are thriving because that helps everybody in terms of our property values. And so we want to support our schools as best we can and where we can and how we can. But in terms of specific decisions regarding curriculum, I think that is best left for our experts who we elect or who are in our school, and then the elected officials who are seated on that board.
Thank you. This will be the last question. And Patty, you're going to start it off, please. Describe and share your respective backgrounds, leadership, management, and fiscal experiences that are important to leading River Forest now and into the future?
Great question. So as village president, I see that role as being a community leader, right? It's not a CEO position, it's a community leader. And my whole life has essentially been in leadership roles for the community, whether that was working as the assistant daycare director at Hepzibah in a leadership role there, managing staff, whether it is leading the lemonade effort, where to date we have raised over $400,000 for the community. In my 10-year role as the leader, the program coordinator for Holiday Food and Gift Basket, having to have relationships with multiple stakeholder groups, having to coordinate volunteers, having to raise money, which this particular year, having to pivot with COVID. In a 2-week time, I had to raise $100,000 that I didn't expect to do. And it was because of my deep connections and relationships with people in the community, I was able to get that done. And so I have decades worth of experience in the leadership role, being collaborative. That will absolutely benefit my role as village president.
Thank you, Cathy.
Yes, thanks for this question. And in all due respect, this is a lot more than a cheerleader role. This is a role that is a CEO. We have a $30 million complex government. It is based on many pieces and parts that come into that budget. It's based on relationship buildings from the state and the federal, and of course our taxing bodies surround us, and of course all of our communities that surround us. It takes a strategic thinker, a visionary, and someone that has a steady hand. There are times when we are in a crisis, and it goes beyond COVID-19. We saw the crisis that happened right after the George Floyd incident. It is something that is a very serious role that takes a huge amount of effort, and it takes a lot of effort to manage the staff as well, because they are also looking for direction. So I believe I am the right person for it. My background of managing a $1 billion budget at Unisys and 1,000 plus employees at Unisys, and of course the 8 years of success that we've had here in River Forest, it clearly is it's an executive level job. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to do closing statements now. And Cathy, you're going to start with your closing statement, a 1-minute closing statement, please.
Okay, very good. I will. Okay, thanks, Peggy. And I want to thank the League and of course the Public Library for this forum and giving me a chance to tell you all the residents, the many accomplishments and the progress we've made over the last 8 years. I'm personally accountable for what I say. You can trust me. My word is my bond, and I have high moral principles. I have been endorsed by business leaders, former presidents of D200, D90, and many elected officials within our community and around our community and in the state who know just how hard I work on your behalf. So let me ask you, if over the last 8 years, you believe our community is safer and more welcoming, that we have strengthened our quality of life by implementing important programs like sustainability, caring for our older adults, finding solutions to prevent flooding in our community, while all along being good stewards of our tax dollars by ensuring that we do not spend beyond our means and balancing our budget every year. So if you believe we have accomplished all of that, and we have, then I ask for your vote on April 6th to build on the progress we've already made together. And I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Patty?
Thank you, Peggy. And again, thank you to the League and Library for providing this. I am running for village president to advance actions for all River Foresters rather than continuing the slow progress. After 11 years, we are still looking at an empty lot at Lake and Lathrop. Can we risk the same on Madison or North Avenue? It took us 17 years to have a minimally compliant affordable housing plan. In this housing market, do we want to have our lowest benchmark be our goal? It took 5 years the village to join Dominicans' Racial Healing Initiative. Racial justice issues are not new. In 2021, can we settle on hopeful actions in this area? It has taken way too long for us to see the value of partnering with Maywood. How can we tout municipal partnerships and ignore one of our 4 neighbors? Under my leadership, we will achieve real gains in economic development, diversity, sustainability, and much more. And we will do so by me creating a culture that values input and welcomes voices from everybody at the table. If you want a leader who models integrity and transparency, vote for me April 6th. Thank
Well, I
you.
want to thank both of you for participating today and sharing your thoughts during this forum, and also stepping up to serve your community like you have for the last few years. It is a time-consuming and sometimes soul-crushing job, but I think you both have performed beautifully. So good luck in the upcoming election. Excuse me. We'll also be holding, again, the trustee forum following this forum starts at 3:30. If you still have not registered, you can go on the River Forest website, River Forest Library website, and do so. This is a recorded forum, and it'll be posted on the River Forest Library website fairly soon. So if you were not able to see it today, or if you know someone that would like to see it, please reference that to them and they can go online and watch it at their leisure. There's also the schedule of, there'll be 2 more River Forest forums on March the 18th for the library and park district races. Those again will be in partnership with the River Forest Library and will be recorded and eventually put on their website. Thank you again to Megan O'Keefe for all her help.
Yeah.
And we hope to see you maybe in about a half an hour after you take a short break. And thank you again, ladies. Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day.